I got to the boardroom 5 minutes early. Old habit. Being early always gave me time to breathe, to scan the room, to prepare. But that morning, something felt off. The lights were already on. The projector screen glowed with Foresta's green and cream palette, cycling through slides I hadn't made. As I stepped closer, the title hit me in all caps. New Leadership Model, Vision 2025. No subtitle, no sub-authors, no mention of me. Celine stood at the front, framed by the screen like a keynote speaker at a tech conference. She wore her powder blue blazer, the one she always picked for things that got press. I glanced at the table, 12 seats, one with a printed name tag that read Creative Director, Celine. Mine was nowhere, so I sat at the end, not at the head, not near my parents, at the far edge, like an intern waiting for a task. "Thanks everyone for coming on short notice," Celine chirped. Her voice had that customer-facing tone, upbeat with a twist of manufactured warmth. Today, we're excited to share the next phase of Foresta's growth, a phase that honors our roots but focuses on tomorrow. Darla nodded like she was at a church sermon. Alton, my father, stayed quiet, his fingers pressed into his coffee cup. My name still hadn't been mentioned. The slides rolled on. Charts, words like evolution, innovation, brand trust, all swirling around Celine's voice. Then came the restructured org chart, a vertical ladder. At the top, Creative Director, Celine. Below her, 3 new roles. My box, gone, just blank space where Product Innovation Lead used to be. "Some of our legacy systems have served us well," Celine said, glancing in my direction. "But to stay competitive, we need agile minds and fresh perspectives." Darla clapped, one soft clap that cracked the air like a twig underfoot. Alton joined her a moment later. Then came the others, people I mentored, people I hired, adding to the applause that filled the room. I sat frozen, the corners of my mouth lifting into a smile I didn't feel. It was the kind of smile you wear to funerals when people say the deceased is in a better place. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I stared at the screen that had just erased me from the company I helped build. My stomach felt hollow, like I'd swallowed my own name and it hadn't landed. No one turned toward me when the meeting ended. They folded laptops, collected water bottles, filtered out like it was any other Tuesday. Darla gave me a nod, the kind you give someone who's been demoted but might still be useful. Alton avoided my eyes entirely. I waited until the room emptied. The screen had gone black. Celine was packing up her clicker, humming something off-key. She glanced at me like I was a coat rack. "Hope you don't mind," she said, tossing her charger into her tote. "You'll still be on technical support, right? That's your sweet spot anyway." I kept my face neutral. "Of course." What I wanted to say was, "You're not even hiding it anymore," but I didn't, because that would have acknowledged the game, and I wasn't playing by her rules. Not yet. The next morning, I walked into the lobby at 8:05. The usual receptionist wasn't there. A new intern sat behind the desk, chewing on a pen cap and typing something into Slack. I nodded at her and looked up. Our founding wall, the timeline of Foresta, used to start with a photo of me, Alton, and Darla in our first shared kitchen workspace. Me in a hoodie, holding the prototype mask jar we hand-poured. It was gone. In its place, a new banner-sized poster. Led by Vision, powered by Celine. And I hadn't even been told they were doing photo shoots. I didn't sleep well the night after seeing that poster. My old spot, gone. My name, erased. The new slogan stared down at me like it had always belonged. A few days later, I drove over to my parents' house for Sunday dinner, the kind we hadn't skipped since before the company had a logo. Darla was setting the table when I walked in, humming like nothing had changed. Alton sat reading the business section, glasses perched low, eyebrows drawn tight. Celine's name flashed in the headline. Again. Over roast chicken and mashed potatoes, they talked about a new campaign Celine was launching next quarter. "It's sleek," Darla said. "She really knows how to speak the language of today's market." I nodded, took a sip of water. No one asked about my projects. No one asked about anything I'd done, really. It was like I'd just become someone who happened to share their last name. "You're still part of it," Darla added mid-chew. "Just not the face." That's not a bad thing. I forced a polite laugh and reached for more salad. They didn't realize they were giving a eulogy and calling it praise. After dinner, I walked the hallway toward the bathroom and slowed at the wall of family photos. A new frame caught my eye, our first trade show back in 2010. Or what was left of it. I used to be front and center in that shot, holding the display bottle we stayed up 2 nights creating. Now, I was cropped halfway out, the glass glare catching just enough of my shoulder to prove I had once been there. It wasn't an accident. The frame had been rehung, the new image perfectly aligned, not 1 inch off. When I walked back into the dining room, no one noticed my silence. They were too busy arguing over fonts for Celine's next rebranding deck. Later that night, back home, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled 2015 Crisis. Inside were screenshots, supplier emails, timelines. I'd forgotten how detailed I had been. That year, our factory caught fire, halting all orders. Celine was out of town, celebrating a friend's birthday in Napa. I rerouted production in 72 hours. Didn't sleep, didn't speak, just fixed it. No one had ever mentioned it again. I remembered that silence as I scrolled through Foresta's latest newsletter. There it was. Leadership Evolution, celebrating our visionaries. A clean layout. A long paragraph about Celine. Not even a bullet point for me. I picked up the phone, called Darla. She answered like nothing was wrong. "It's just business, sweetie," she said after I brought it up. "You know how these things go." That phrase, just business, always seems to come from people who benefit from things staying exactly as they are. I hung up without another word. Later that evening, as I folded laundry in silence, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Zeke, the junior IT guy who once asked me for resume feedback. He'd sent a photo. The office hallway. A new collage installed just outside the boardroom. Captioned beneath Celine's glowing portrait. "Our founding face, Celine, since day one." I didn't reply. I just showed up the next morning, early. Too early for anyone else to see what I was about to do. By the time I parked in my usual spot behind the building, the sky was still dim. I wanted a head start, before the rest of the office filled up with smiles too tight and small talk that always ended before I answered. The elevator ride up to the 3rd floor felt heavier than usual. I tapped my keycard at the glass door. No click. The reader stayed red. I tried again. Same thing. My breath caught in my chest as I took a step back, staring at the quiet hallway behind me. I used that card yesterday. Zeke from IT walked by, his eyes flicking toward me before quickly returning to the floor. He didn't stop. That was new. I pulled out my phone and tried logging into the internal dashboard. Access denied. A message popped up. For system access inquiries, contact HR. My email signature had changed too. No more co-founder, just consultant, and the font was smaller. I walked down the hall to my office, if it could still be called that. The door was ajar. Inside, a cardboard box sat on my desk, my framed certificate, my half-used notepad, the mug that said, "Built, not branded." Someone had packed it all up. A junior coordinator hovered by the doorway. She looked about 20, maybe less, her badge still shiny from the printer. "They asked us to prep your desk," she said softly, "for reassignment." I didn't ask who they were. I just thanked her, picked up the box, and carried it out like it weighed nothing. Downstairs in the parking lot, I set it on the passenger seat and sat in silence. It wasn't the first time I'd been overlooked, but it was the first time they tried to erase me quietly, like a system update that just rolls over you while you sleep. Back at home, I sat with a cup of stale coffee and opened my old files. Every version of the clay mask formula I'd developed during the height of the pandemic was still there. Date-stamped, documented, revised down to the microgram. I remembered those nights, me in a hoodie, elbows deep in the mixing bench, trying to balance consistency with ingredient availability. Our suppliers were weeks behind, the shipments erratic. Celine had been in Tulum, recharging, posting beach shots with captions like, "Rest is radical." She'd never set foot in the formulation lab, never asked about the shelf life, never checked if the new preservatives were eco-certified. but in the company-wide email that had just landed in my inbox, she was the sole face of our new product launch. Inspired by modern beauty rituals, led by Celine. The tagline hovered above her photo, hair curled perfectly, arms folded like she'd personally bottled every jar. I closed the laptop. I needed air. On my way out, I passed Celine's department. The doors were open, lights bright, a camera crew buzzing around her as she adjusted her blazer between takes. She noticed me, smiled, barely. "Don't overthink it," she said as a makeup artist dabbed her cheek. "We're just reorganizing. Your legacy and legacy supports." I didn't respond. The photographer called out, "Smile, boss," and Celine turned to pose. The next day, I requested a copy of the IP registration for the new formula. It wasn't easy to get. It never is when people are hiding things in plain sight. But I got it. There were 2 names listed, hers and someone from branding. Mine wasn't there, and I knew this wasn't neglect. It was precision. It was a Thursday morning, and I was still in sweatpants when my phone vibrated on the counter. I picked it up without much thought, expecting some meaningless reminder or a shipping delay. Instead, it was a notification from a client I hadn't heard from in months. The kind of client I'd personally secured, managed, and saved twice from cancellation. The payment was in $50,000. Only, not to me. I clicked through the transfer confirmation. The receiving account wasn't mine or even routed to my former department. It was directed to Foresta's corporate operating account, flagged with a note, "Strategic Partnership, Celine Eldridge." The bitterness hit like cold air after stepping out of a hot shower. You don't even flinch at first, but then it stings everywhere at once. I didn't call accounting, didn't email HR, I didn't even call Celine. Instead, I opened an old spreadsheet and began logging. Not dollars, patterns. The way things were moving, what was being reworded, repurposed, repackaged. The rebranding wasn't just for products, it was happening to my legacy. That night, I sat in my car after groceries, watching the rain trace veins across my windshield. I remember thinking, it's not the money, not really. It's the fact that someone else's name was on the deal I sealed. She hadn't written the proposal, hadn't flown out to their warehouse during the snowstorm last year, but she was getting paid like she had. At 12:23 a.m., my phone rang. Zeke. I hesitated. Picked up. "I didn't know who else to call," he whispered, like someone might be listening. "I was asked to scrub your name from internal logs. They said you signed a release form, that you'd stepped down, but you didn't, right?" I didn't say yes or no. I just let silence sit there. He continued, his voice tighter. "They told my team if we didn't process the request, we'd lose access to our remote admin tools." I didn't know what to do." "You did exactly what they expected," I said quietly. "Just keep the emails. Don't delete anything." He nodded into the phone. I could hear it in his breath. I spent the next day building a folder. Not digital. Real paper, clipped, labeled, time-stamped. Contracts I'd signed, invoices I submitted, emails with contribution logs. Every product meeting that had my name on it. Every component tested under my supervision. I didn't highlight anything. I let the weight of the truth speak for itself. Because when someone wants you gone, they don't delete you. They rewrite around you. Around noon, while I was cataloging supplier forms, my phone pinged again. Celine was live on Instagram. I clicked out of reflex. She was in a well-lit room with potted ferns behind her, wearing a soft beige blouse and talking into her phone like she was coaching a TED Talk. "Every brand has its past," she was saying, "but I'm focused on the future." My team believes in my vision, and that's what drives everything we do. I shut the app. That wasn't vision, it was avoidance dressed in rhetoric. I took a breath, went to my laptop, opened a blank email. I blind CC'd myself. No subject line. Typed, "I request a full record of financial transfers tied to product line, Clay Bloom, under Clause 4B of Foresta's Intellectual Property Agreement." I didn't send it to internal counsel. I sent it to the law firm Celine used to impress at every investor dinner. The envelope was on my doorstep when I got home from picking up groceries. No return address, just my name written in clean cursive on off-white paper. I recognized the wax seal instantly. Rowan's firm had always used the same custom stamp for their founder-to-founder notes. I set the bag of produce down and opened the envelope slowly, the wax cracking like ice underfoot. Inside was a short letter, handwritten. "You made us believe in people again," it began. "You weren't loud, but you were real. If you ever want to talk, no intermediaries, no titles, no gatekeeping, just you and me. No pitch, no ask, just an open door." I folded it neatly, slid it into the drawer beside my desk, and stared out the window for a long while. The sun had dipped below the tree line. The neighborhood was already settling into the kind of stillness that makes every sound feel exaggerated. I opened my laptop, no hesitation this time, no drafts. I typed with the kind of clarity you earn, not borrow. I addressed it to the legal firm Celine used to flaunt at board meetings, the one with a mahogany conference room and embossed water bottles. Subject line, empty. Body. Attached are IP documents for product lines. A through C. I request legal evaluation for independent ownership and verification of original authorship. I signed it. Just my name. No title. Then I attached the folder, dated, time-stamped, witness verified, and I hit send. It didn't shake me. It didn't thrill me. It just settled, like a weight sliding into the place it had always belonged. 15 minutes later, the Slack thread started bubbling. Did someone forward a request to outside counsel? Is there a doc trail for the Bloom formula? Whose name is even on the patent? Zeke messaged me privately. They're scrambling. It's kind of beautiful. I didn't reply. I was already recording a voice note. 27 seconds. I sent it to Laurel only, my cousin, the only one left inside the company who hadn't turned silence into survival. "I'm not doing this to win," I said, my voice steady, calm. "I don't want revenge, but I won't rebuild a house for people who tried to bury me under it." I ended the recording and closed my phone. The next morning, I accepted Rowan's invite for coffee. I wore no makeup, no pitch prep outfit, just me, a wool coat, and a leather folder. When I walked into the cafe, he stood immediately, didn't offer a handshake, just nodded like we'd already had this conversation years ago. "This isn't a pitch," he said, motioning for me to sit. "No?" I asked. "No," he said. "It's a reset." I smiled, and for the first time in months, I didn't second-guess my yes. It started with a screenshot. Laurel forwarded it to me late Tuesday night, no subject line. It was an internal email, Celine's, sent to the leadership Slack channel, time-stamped just a few hours earlier. "She's technical but dry," it read. "No inspiration, no connection. That's why we've pivoted branding away from her influence." I stared at the screen long enough for the letters to blur. Then I let out a laugh that didn't sound like mine. Not angry, not surprised, just hollow. Laurel followed up with a text. "She just handed you your rebuttal." The next morning, I sat at my studio desk, sorting through my old product reports. Every formula I'd developed, every system I patched after hours, every budget-saving workaround they still used but never acknowledged. I compiled them into a clean, labeled archive. I didn't put my name on the documents. I didn't have to. Then I sent the entire folder, anonymously, to operations. No note, except one line at the top of the shared drive. "Use what works. I don't need credit, but the system does." Zeke messaged me within an hour. "Ops is buzzing, like a dropped beehive." But that wasn't the only buzz. Apparently, Zeke had dug up an old town hall recording. In it, Celine, perched confidently in front of a pastel Canva deck, said, "People like Mariska think systems matter more than brand, but brand is the system." The quote spread quietly through the engineering team. No public commentary, just a string of passive Slacks and emoji responses under random threads. But I could feel it shift, not loud, but steady. Thursday, Celine walked into the boardroom with her usual posture, chin slightly high, blazer crisp, speaking like every word came with applause baked in. She began presenting a new pitch deck for a relaunch strategy. Midway through, the screen flickered, then glitched. And in a moment so fast it almost felt staged, the file name appeared in the corner of the screen. Draft, Mariska, Batch Reorg, V3. Silence. One board member, a man I hadn't spoken to since 2019, cleared his throat and asked, "Did Mariska build this structure?" Celine's mouth opened, closed, opened again. We collaborated. Early drafts, maybe. She's no longer actively involved." He raised a brow. "Let's circle back." The slide changed, but the air in the room didn't. Later that afternoon, I received a Slack ping from a junior designer. She'd never messaged me before. "I always thought it was weird we never credited you," she wrote. "Just wanted to say, respect." No name, no emoji, just that. Then came the calendar invite. Subject line, Executive Strategy Sync, optional. It was scheduled for Monday, 10 a.m. in the main boardroom, the same room where I used to sit in the first chair on the left. I didn't respond. Because I'd already said yes to something else, a quiet lunch across town with a client who still remembered my name. I hadn't planned on stepping foot into Foresta again that week, but my cousin Laurel asked me to pick up a document she'd forgotten at the front desk. I walked through the lobby like a ghost nobody expected to see. Then I saw it. A stack of fresh magazines sat in a display rack beside the receptionist, glossy covers, a familiar logo, and right there, front and center, Celine, in monochrome elegance, framed by soft studio lighting. The headline read, "How Celine Reimagined Clean Beauty, Founder, Innovator, Visionary." I picked one up. My hands didn't shake. I flipped straight to the feature. There it was, in full print. As co-founder and chief product designer, Celine Eldridge has revolutionized Foresta's identity from homegrown to household. Not a single mention of me, not even a footnote. I didn't get angry. I scanned the QR code at the bottom of the page and saved the link. That afternoon, I opened LinkedIn. Quiet at first. Then, ripple by ripple, comments started stacking under the digital version of the article. Didn't Mariska design the original clay line? We were early partners in 2019. She was the one running ops, never met Celine. I remember the fire. Mariska rerouted our entire supply. That saved our Q3. A new thread spun up. Hashtag give credit where due. The next move came from someone I didn't expect. Laurel. She posted a simple statement attached to a scanned document trail showing product ownership dates and engineering flowcharts. "I've waited too long to say this," she wrote. "The architecture behind Foresta's best-selling line was Mariska's. I watched her build it. I watched others take credit for it. Enough." The post exploded. Internally. Externally. Slack threads lit up. Screenshots bounced between group chats. Clients started commenting beneath the article. Then came the internal forward to Alton and Darla. One of the board members wrote, "If this article is being circulated, we need to ensure our narrative aligns with our paperwork." That night, my phone rang. Alton. I let it go to voicemail, then a single-line email from Darla. "Can we talk?" No. Instead, I opened Medium, wrote my own article. No adjectives. No embellishment. Just the history as it happened. I ended it like this. This isn't about revenge. It's about restoring record. If people choose truth over polish, that's their call. I've made mine. It trended. Foresta's PR went silent for 2 days. Then Rowan's firm released a statement. "We value innovation built with integrity. Our partnerships reflect that." And just like that, Celine wasn't the headline anymore. The offer letter arrived in my inbox at 9:12 a.m. on a Monday. No fluff, no buzzwords, just facts. Consulting title, decision-making power, no hierarchy above me, and most importantly, no Celine. I didn't hesitate. I printed the letter, signed it, scanned it back in, and hit send. Then I looked out the window of my home studio. The city was quiet, early spring still clinging to the last of the gray. I folded the original document in half and slid it into a folder marked 2025. For once, I didn't feel the need to write anything else down. This time, I whispered out loud, the title won't be up for grabs. That same afternoon, Foresta held their scheduled board meeting. A crisis sync, they called it. Laurel forwarded me the agenda with no comment, just a subject line. Guess who didn't show? Celine had been scheduled to present the next phase of product development. She delayed. Again. The room grew restless. Investors began side-chatting on mute. Finally, Laurel spoke up. "I'd like to go on record," she said, "that the IP credits for the Bloom line were falsified. The original development documentation predates Celine's involvement entirely." The silence that followed was something I wish I could have bottled. Alton left a voicemail that night. His tone was different, slower, maybe heavier. "We should have seen it earlier," he said. "You didn't deserve this, kid." I listened once, then deleted it. Darla's email was shorter. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer either. Instead, I opened my journal and wrote 4 words at the top of a new page. Closure does not equal contact. The next morning, Rowan's firm published their partnership announcement. "We believe in crediting architects, not decorators," it read. My name was there, tagged publicly. My inbox lit up with old partners, former interns, people I hadn't heard from since we were running packing shifts out of my garage. Foresta's PR team resigned 2 days later. Celine posted a vague story about taking a leave for clarity, no details, just a sepia-toned photo of a cabin in the woods and a quote that read, "Sometimes growth is stepping back." Clients quietly pulled out of 3 pending launches. Internally, a memo leaked. No comment until further notice. Darla sent one more message, this time 3 paragraphs, regret, confusion, a tangle of motherhood and executive misjudgment. I read it once, then archived it. On Friday, I put on a long wool coat, grabbed my travel mug, and walked past Foresta HQ. The building looked the same from the outside, sleek signage, clean glass, but they were replacing the old silver-lettered plaque. The workers didn't even glance at me. I didn't stop walking, didn't need to, because when you finally build your own table, you stop asking for a seat at theirs.